Hello and welcome, everybody. I finally got a better camera. That means that the quality of at least my side of the video should be a little bit better. I couldn't figure out the autofocus on this recording, but I think I'm getting there, and hopefully the future episodes are going to be of a higher quality. And there is another important announcement. Um, if you have a story, an interesting story, or you know someone who wants to share a story, send it to tigran at gooh podcast.com. And who knows, maybe your story is going to appear on one of our next episodes. And on that, let's move to the episode. All right. Hello and welcome everyone. On this episode of Getting Out of Hell, we have Sam Borghese. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly, by the way?
Sam Borghese is like the
Borghese. This is
correct,
like
but
an Italian last
yeah,
name, right?
Italian, yeah.
Nice, nice.
Roman.
Cool.
There's like a pope. Yeah,
Cool. Sam is a mathematics professor at UCLA and
economic.
is also economics, sorry, and is also getting into some currency investments, building um, his own investment fund. Am I right?
Yeah, a hedge fund. We launched a hedge fund. We started it about 9 months ago and officially launched a few months ago. Featured in Bloomberg and Yahoo Finance.
Yeah, and the topic of today's episode is going to be exactly that: the mathematics, the crypto industry, and how all of that works. Maybe you can start with your overall journey. How do you get from economics professor to, you know, hedge fund investor in
Yeah,
crypto? Like,
yeah.
how was that
Of course, of course. First off,
happening?
let me thank you so much, Tigran, for having me on. I expect big things from this podcast. I'm really honored. You asked me to do this. Anyway, I started off. I think I was a little fortunate just having a passion and a drive for math. A lot of people, aren't born with like laser like focus. So I love doing math. I do it on index cards and move them all around back on like the TI-86 calculators. I don't know. I just love that quite a bit. So I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I
Mhm.
didn't know. I just knew I wanted to work in mathematics, whatever that was. I went to UC Santa Cruz, started majoring in math. The major was so short, I needed to add another major or pretty much take whatever I wanted, for a year. So I decided to add economics. Just people said you'd like it, you'd be interested in it. I was always kind of against applied math. I really liked physics, but
Oh, nice.
yeah, computer science, anything else, I was like, not really. Until I look into it, and then I get very intrigued with it as well. So, yeah, so started studying economics, fell in love with that. Eventually, took some programming classes, and then I went on to get my master's. Hired as a research assistant, and they saw I knew a lot of these softwares related to cloud computing, machine learning, that have only been out for 4 to 10 years. So a lot of the professors there don't know how to teach these skills that are really required in the
Oh,
workplace.
they are so new. I myself work in data science, and I think 10 years ago, we didn't even have the programming languages. I mean, we did, but they haven't been used for what they are used now. Like
Yep.
we would use MATLAB or Statistica or something like that. Nothing remotely close to what is happening now. So yeah, completely feel that.
Exactly. Yeah, there's like a rapid acceleration. I mean, you look at AWS's suite of services, they add stuff all the time. They change
And
how to use them
it's
all
so crazy in hindsight. When I started thinking about it, a company that was originally built to sell books is now
the
like
time.
providing cloud services for all the tech giants essentially. Like no one can stay away from using AWS pretty much today. If you
Yeah.
do anything in the cloud, it's just you're kind of bound to. There is no real alternative. which
Yeah.
is, yeah, it kind of blew my mind that one company can be so multidisciplinary,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
developed in all these fields.
I was talking with somebody last night. They're even getting into medication deliveries, and they're just in every little branch.
And
There are some competitors which I teach as well. Like Google Cloud is a lot more user friendly than
oh wow,
AWS.
yeah, I
Oracle.
would expect that.
Yeah, right. Google's always very user friendly. What's interesting is most of these cloud services have a very
Hmm.
large free tier. Uh,
Mm.
so people can go. A lot of people aren't aware. You can go and you can learn these services for free. Play around with them up to uh, quite a significant level.
That is true. I think even at AWS, when I've been doing my master's in business analytics, you can get uh, like a small size instance. Instance is like a virtual server. This is
Yeah.
for our followers. Uh, to play around, to run some machine learning models for free, for absolutely no charge, until you hit some limit of memory, of course. But it was a great playground to play around. And I've been also part of one nonprofit organization. We've been doing some educational stuff on data science as well. And we got a huge free tier on Google BigQuery.
Hmm.
Like, I couldn't believe they would just provide that for free. I mean, partly because we were a nonprofit organization, of course, but still, uh, I mean, the amount of resources that are available up there for you to just, go through and learn from is absolutely insane.
Yeah, my friend wanted to build a bot that would actually go in and make accounts, use up the free tier, and then make a new account. And just
Oh wow, that's crazy.
I don't know if he went through with it, but
It's
yeah.
like
Wait,
utilizing the free stuff.
yeah, just utilizing the free
But
stuff
technically, he would need a paid cluster to run that algorithm, isn't
to do
it?
something. Well, depending, if he's just trying to optimize storage, or maybe he wants, hundreds of Lambda
Mhm.
functions doing different tasks, whatever. I don't know if he went through with it. Don't come
Uh,
after me, Amazon.
so you've
Um,
you've been doing all that cloud stuff up there in the university, and how did that unfold?
Yeah, well, like I said, the master's program I teach in is like a finishing degree. So a lot of these students are trying to get careers, like,
Mhm.
very um, immediately after graduation. They want careers in data science, economics, and so forth. And right, really requested skills. You have SQL, you have AWS. A lot of finance is hiring a ton of data scientists as well. So data science for finance, and academia, just most programs don't have the staff or the tools needed to be able to equip these students with these skills um, anywhere. So that's how they brought me on. The students are absolutely loving it. And we're constantly growing, adding new things as they come. Something else I do there too is the quant lab. It
What's
does
that?
it does algorithmic forecasts on foreign currencies, and then expanded commodities, even economic indicators. So that's
Is
using
it a
all
time
fundamental.
series? We kind of look over the old data and we try to predict how it is going to unfold, or is there?
So it's very different from that. We don't look at price data at all.
Oh wow,
So yeah, so you take the euro price data, we don't even look at it, right? We use
interesting.
all fundamental data to say, oh, you should be long euro now. The dollar's going to depreciate. So, uh,
What
you
do you
know,
look on then, if not the old prices? I'm
it's
just curious. It's
I'm
just
actually
this.
signed. I'm signed
Uh,
on an NDA to
oh,
not
okay,
release it.
okay.
I don't know. They treat it
That's the
like
secret.
the secret sauce. Yeah, anything I come up with there. But economic
But the
indicators.
whole idea that the older prices of a value don't predict their future prices is, I think, really mind blowing. Like, because that's how we tend to invest, right? You usually look how it was fluctuating before, and
Yeah,
you try to project that into future. You think,
yeah,
well, if it was growing before, it's going to grow next, or if it was falling, it's going to keep falling.
Mhm.
And basically your approach is absolutely the opposite. You absolutely disregard whatever was happening before, and you
Opposite.
guys have some secret combination of data from other sources to,
Yeah.
is it working better? Like, can you share that? Like, is it better than just looking at the old data so far?
Oh, then just running a simple ARMA or VAR model. Yeah, yeah, it performs better. And um, there's always this trade off you have of interpretability um, and accuracy, right?
Accuracy,
So,
exactly.
right,
Highly accurate models are absolutely non-interpretable. If
yeah, because
non-interpretable, this is for the audience. When the model is not interpretable, it's like a black box. Your predictive model says do this, but it doesn't really explain why. And I
Mhm.
think that's a big problem in finance because it's hard to convince the people with big wallets to invest money because the algorithm said so, right?
Yep. And so you look at algorithmic trading now, a lot of it is black boxes because it's moving at nanoseconds. Stuff is moving at nanoseconds. So there's these flash crashes where they all sell
Uh-huh.
and nobody knows why they did Eugene Fama
That's
would
crazy.
argue, you know, it's not part of that, but
Maybe let's dial a little bit back to mathematics.
of
I
course.
I love mathematics. I'm a tech person. I grew up completely in tech. My bachelor was in electronic engineering. I got through the admissions without any examination because I was lucky enough to win physics Olympiad in Russia, which obviously demanded some math as well. Although I failed the math Olympiads, but that's another story. But I think it's today it seems to me that the importance of mathematics is severely underappreciated in
Mhm.
terms of how much it helps. I really see a lot of people, and I've been seeing them at school too. It's like, well, why the hell should I learn mathematics? Like, am I going to use trigonometry in my daily, life? I don't need that. Like, it's not going to even help me to do my taxes. Like, why do I need this? Like, why should I learn geometry, for example? And it would be really interesting to get your perspective as someone who is in the field of mathematics. Uh, why is that important? Why it can be fascinating? And in the meantime, why mathematics being so important, so many people really overlook the value of it.
Oh, certainly. So what made me think of that, or what that made me think of, was this teacher I had back in high school, and one of the students asked, "When are we ever going to use this?" And he goes, "That question comes up every year." And his response was, "We're not teaching you, the Pythagorean theorem or whatever, because you're going to be using it later. We're teaching you how to think, right? How to approach a problem
Hmm.
from fact. A lot of disciplines you come into it and it's all argument based, right? It's all opinion, argument based, political
I mean,
science.
yeah, humanitarian sciences, historical things, there are lots of opinions, there are definitely lots of viewpoints, but
But math is the search for truth. It's the search for fact. It's one of the only disciplines I think where somebody could come up, they could present their conceptions, and if somebody pointed out an error, pointed out something wrong, they wouldn't get defensive. They would go, "Oh yes, sorry, that's a mistake," right?
it
Because
just falls apart. You can't
it
defend
won't
that
work.
2 plus 2 is 3, like whatever
Right.
your opinion is on that. Exactly.
So it's one of the purest forms of truth, and from math everything else branches off. It Systems get more complex and they get convoluted, but if you really think it through, you have math that defines physics, physics defines chemistry, defines biology, defines neurology, psychology, sociology. Everything can be broken down into mathematical models. um, and there's even this one book. It's about quantum physics. It's called Brick by Brick, and they say everything in this world is just models, right? The
Oh, wow.
constant phrase is no models are right, but some are useful, right?
Some are useful, exactly.
Yeah, every model we have for human behavior, for you know physics, even none of them are perfect, but some of
They're
them.
limited, exactly. I remember in physics, we are still in search of some sort of all-encompassing theory that will
Yeah.
explain,
Hmm.
quantum physics
Yeah.
or macro physics, like
Yeah.
in the scale of things we can see,
Yeah.
and there is no single theory that can. We are yet to find a single theory that can actually explain all the ideas on all the scales, like on atomic
All the
scale and
four
on the
forces.
scale of visible things.
Hmm.
That's really interesting. I think for me always mathematics was the language
Hmm.
of everything we can explain. Like when you look, when you walk down the street, you see a street lamp. That street lamp works because of physics, because there is some electricity, some power of electricity which goes through the lamp, which there are photons coming from that lamp that reflect from the floor, from the ground, and you catch them with your eye and you see them. And but to explain all of that physics, you need the
Hmm.
language, you need the system of representing what is happening. And that for me was mathematics. I would say also it's what I really took from mathematics myself is probably the ability to come to conclusions given a given set of facts. Let's say
Yeah.
that's what we do in mathematics. Like that's
Hmm.
the whole concept of a mathematical proof. Like, and people hate it. I've been hating it in geometry. Like, hey, you've given this data, prove that this triangle is has like a 90-degree angle in it or
Yeah.
something. Like, you go prove it. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? But it really trained my ability to make, I would say, in some sense of correct conclusions given the data I have. Okay, so if A then B, if B then C, and if C, okay, then the angle is actually 90 degrees.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of this framework that is useful everywhere
Yeah.
outside of mathematics as well. I think it's also important when, um, I mean, we obviously get scammed a lot, like all the time, and very often having this logical way of thinking keeps you away from making the wrong conclusion, and losing money, doing the wrong investment. Someone offers you something like an insane
Free.
return on something, right? And you're like, well, if I had this, wouldn't I invest all of my money in it and tell nobody about it? Like you're just start asking these questions, like
Yeah.
which are logical to ask. And I think the role of mathematics is really crucial in the sense of critical thinking as a whole.
Yes.
And critical thinking is something that you need not only in mathematics, but it's just like everywhere.
Hmm.
uh, but why do we hate mathematics? Why are so many people kind of bored to death and they are like, I just don't want to go through all of this?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier is people can't see the point. They can't
Uh-huh.
see the relation to real life. You spend, I don't know, probably like 10 years of math before they even introduce word problems. And then even
Yeah,
those don't make any sense either. It's, how many apples are you? You're like, I'm not an apple harvester. So
exactly. What the hell am I doing, right?
yeah, and the issue is, school has been taught the same way for a long time. It's
For a
like,
long time.
yeah, it's like you have a system that's so deeply ingrained. It takes a lot to uproot that system. One teacher doing something different in the middle of wherever isn't going to
Hmm.
change how everybody learns math all throughout the world. I think we're seeing a change in it as well. There's so much math YouTube, which I think teaches and communicates topics visually. You can see stuff in real time, and you can see the application all at
I
once. And
just I just have to mention the Three Blue One Brown YouTube
exactly,
channel. If
exactly,
you
yeah.
haven't seen it and you hate mathematics, just give it a try,
Hmm.
and just watch the magic unfold. That was probably one of the most fascinating channels I watched on mathematics as like
100%.
altogether.
I recommend that to people too who say I want to get into it. Also, Mathologer and Numberphile are fantastic.
Yeah.
You could sit through all of those videos and have a deeper understanding than probably going through a bachelor's in mathematics. You know, um,
That's an interesting statement, of course.
um, yeah, of course. What you put
Would you
into
say would you say that universities don't even keep up with, like, making mathematics kind of interesting and
uh,
for people
I'm
to see the end application of it?
once again, yeah, I'm speaking from the point of somebody who's not interested in mathematics, right? If they sat through some videos like
Hmm.
that compared to some lectures, they would probably be
Yeah.
lost. Once again, not see the point, not see how it relates to tangible things.
Uh-huh.
They would be able to understand. So I think that's the real reason, people are so dissuaded from pursuing STEM
Hmm.
concepts. Is really just the way it's taught.
I also thought it's partially because scientific subjects do require a lot more discipline.
Mhm.
Uh, like, you really have to invest your time and really get into the weeds. Speaking for myself, I never had some kind of particular talent in mathematics.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was always painful to see. I would sit in a lecture and there would be people who would just understand everything that the lecturer
Mhm.
tells right at the moment. Like, I didn't have that capability. I had to write everything down like a robot,
Review it.
go back to home and like sit and think, okay, what the hell does this mean? And then after like 2 3 hours of slowly
Yeah.
pushing it forward, it would be like, oh wow, this is what it means. And it would
Yeah.
be like, I don't know, it's like this, light bulb flashing on, and you're like, okay, now I get what's happening here. But it is, in some sense, it is very rewarding at the end when you have that eureka moment, when you get that enlightenment. But the process of approaching to it, the process of getting there, is so painful, so tedious, and so tiring, just honestly speaking. I think just it just many people just give up before
The
they really
magic
have the
happens.
opportunity. Yeah, the magic happens, exactly.
Yeah.
uh
That
let's pull up.
I
Yeah,
was
go
gonna
ahead.
say what you were saying is very similar. Documentary I would recommend is on Andrew Wiles. He solved Fermat's last theorem, and he worked
Oh,
on
right, right.
yeah, he worked on it for 7 years, and he said very similarly, like working on proofs or working in math is like stumbling around a dark room where you're touching things and you're like, what is this? You don't even know what it is until finally you get the light switch. You see everything's interconnected, and it's just this feeling like, oh, it all makes sense for the first time in a
It's
moment.
just it's just an interesting legend. I would love to tell a bit more details to our followers. So Fermat's hypothesis was first laid down in famous mathematician Fermat's notes. I think on the book, just he put some notes that a certain equation holds up, and I think he wrote down something like, I could prove it like easy, but there's just not enough space
Yeah,
here for the proof, so I will leave it to someone else.
yeah.
And I think it's a very simple equation, like
It's
high
a
grade.
it's a to the n plus b to the n equals c to the n. For n
For
greater than
any and
two, for n
exactly,
yeah
yeah,
any n greater than two, and you need to have whole numbers for a, b, and c.
whole
You see,
numbers,
people
exactly.
really
So
fight
it's
on.
it's super simple. Anyone on high school could understand what the hypothesis means. But the proving of this hypothesis took, I think, what, 2 centuries. I think some new fields of mathematics were developed
Uh
to
huh.
kind of wrap around their a head around the problem and actually solve it. So
Yeah.
it's just a fascinating story of how, like, it was one of these mathematical legends. Fermat just left it down like, okay, this is easy to prove. I just don't have enough space, and then all of humanity stumbled. I think I think there was um, a problem of the millennia. That's how they call it, right? The University of Clay Awards there is a set of mathematical problems for the
Yeah.
solution of which the University of Clay awards $1 million if you
Hmm.
solve them.
There's 8 of them.
So yeah, so there is still eight of them which are unsolved. So if you have nothing better to do and you won $1 million, so
Go
that's
try.
something that you can invest your time in. Okay,
Um,
maybe we can slowly move into the crypto industry. That was a lot on mathematics, and I always think it was interesting. But
yeah, sure.
let's get to the
If
main topic.
we could jump there. If I could share one story about one of those millennium problems, somebody solved one.
Sure.
Somebody
Oh,
solved one
really?
of them, and sort of classic, what you would imagine a mathematician, rugged hair, big
What was
beard.
it? Was it Grigory Perelman, a
I don't
Russian?
remember. A Russian, yeah, Russian. And he turned down the
The,
million.
He turned down the million. Exactly. That's what
Yeah,
happened. That was a crazy story.
yeah,
He's he's a professor from Russia, and he really looks like a crazy math professor. Like if you
yeah.
just look him up, his last name is, I think it's Grigory Perelman.
That
I
sounds
may
about right. Yeah,
def, definitely Perelman, but I don't remember the exact the first name like 100%. He actually was awarded the $1 million, and he just turned it down. He said he did it for science and not for
yeah,
money,
yeah.
which is just insane to imagine. Like that I mean, that level of devotedness to the science,
Hmm.
uh, which goes to the extreme of you turning down an award
Yeah.
just because you did it for the field, not for the money reward, is just I don't know, absolutely staggering.
Which I
Yeah,
think
well, with
anybody who's going that deep has that much passion. They're not doing it for the money, but you
of
should still
course,
take it. You should still take
you should still take it though. Like, take the reward. Yeah, I agree with that. If you invest 10 years of your life in solving a problem, might as
them.
well get rewarded for it.
Yeah.
So, crypto industry. Let's maybe start at the foundation of it. We all know it all. I mean, not we all, but lots of people know Bitcoin works on blockchain. Like that's the like this major foundation, the technology of blockchain. What is blockchain? Like maybe you can explain in more or less like layman terms.
Yeah.
uh, what's so special about it? Like,
I,
what does it do that no
oh,
other technology does?
yeah. So I'll talk about the important parts of blockchain, and really the important part of Bitcoin and the important part of cryptocurrencies is that it's a decentralized blockchain. Um, blockchain is a cryptographic database. So, we could think me and Tigran are transacting back and forth, and we have an Excel
Mm-hmm.
sheet where we keep all of our transactions going back and forth. I give him money
Mm-hmm.
here, money there, and so forth. And then we say, oh, we don't want the other person to just go in and overwrite any of these transactions. So we're gonna have our other friend validate each one of these, and he's going to sign off
Mm-hmm.
through a specific code, a specific signature that I give or Tigran gives to validate each line, each transaction, and so forth. Um,
And if something doesn't align, basically,
yeah,
it's corrupted and thrown out, right?
exactly. If I say Tigran gives me all of his money and they ask for your secret signature, secret phrase, and I
Mm-hmm.
say something incorrect, they say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
no dice. And let's say
Yeah.
our friend Gary is the person
Mm-hmm.
doing these transactions. He goes, Tigran gives Sam all of his money. Tigran, what's the phrase? And he doesn't hear
Mm-hmm.
anything back. He says, okay, no deal, no deal. And he's
Okay.
validating all of this. Now, Gary would be a minor in this situation, right? He's not going to sit there and he's not going to validate these transactions for free. So we're going to give
Mm-hmm.
him a little
A
salary.
premium.
Yeah, a little fee. The same way we give Visa a fee
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
validating our transactions right now, right? They validate transactions.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What doesn't let the third person, the validating person, to get corrupted
Yep.
and spoil something?
And that is the big revolution of Bitcoin, right? Visa is a centralized source. So if
Mm-hmm.
Visa decided one day, they were like, you know what? let's just mess everything up and let's just start sending money everywhere,
Here
stopping
and
these
there, yeah.
options, then
Make a chaos, or like put
yeah, they just
the
hit the
world in
red button.
fire.
They could, we have to have faith. We have to have a lot of trust in Visa to
Hmm.
uphold their responsibilities. So
Yeah.
what Bitcoin did is they made it decentralized. So we don't have to trust Gary, like I said before.
Hmm.
There's 100 Garys, all over the
Oh,
world.
I see.
Yeah, and they all sit there and uh, they all validate a transaction together. You know,
Of each other.
of off each other. Yeah, and so they all have to agree.
Interesting.
Yep. And so that was really the revolution. It came out of the 2008 crisis where the government was
Hmm.
printing a ton of money, and we have faith in the
Inflation.
financial system. Yeah, we say, we trust you with our savings, with our investments, right? We use the U.S. dollar and we hold U.S. dollars and we trust it. And Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin, whoever it is, didn't like that so much, and he said there should be a trustless cash system,
A
right?
bulletproof way to prove the transaction
A,
authority.
a
Like,
bulletproof way to prove who owns what amount of money, um,
mhm.
and a way to transact it in between parties. Uh,
uh, but maybe someone doesn't want anyone other to know about their transaction history, right? That's another question. Like, but if the foundation of the platform is to reveal like everything for everyone to be able to prove it, maybe you want some privacy. You don't want to know. You don't want others to know how much money comes in and out of your wallet.
yeah.
So, what about that? What
So
about that privacy part?
So real quick, what's interesting, instead of that comment, the number one comment I get is, "Oh, isn't Bitcoin used for fraudulent activity and for
Yeah, but
terrorism?"
and it definitely does though, right? Like all
It
terrorist
does.
cells are known for utilizing like cryptocurrencies in that regard, and
But
that's
what I
part
think,
of why we have the regulations right now. And
yeah,
at least that's how they
KYC,
justify putting the regulations. Oh, because it's to protect against
yeah,
transactions and terrorist cells like
yeah,
drug cartels and
yeah.
all of that.
But what people
So
don't understand, which you clearly do, is that the blockchain is completely visible. So you can see
okay,
every transaction, every person who sends money to every other person, and so forth. So the
uh-huh.
FBI actually love Bitcoin, right? I have this friend
Oh,
in the FBI.
interesting.
They love it because they can trace
They
where
can
the
literally
money
see
goes.
how much was.
You can see
That's
exactly who paid who every which way. I recently there was a headline, somebody got caught hiring a hitman off of Coinbase because they sent their
oh
money.
no,
Yeah,
and
so
oh my god,
the thing was, yeah,
that's
6
crazy.
years ago, none of these wallets were tied to any person, right? None of these
Yeah,
wallets.
that's another question. You can track the money coming into the wallet and out
Yeah,
of a wallet, but you
yeah,
don't know which wallet is associated to whom
yep,
or to which organization, right?
yep.
And I think in Bitcoin you can kind of track that down, but you
People,
can't in some other
yeah,
currencies. Like I think Monero
yep,
doesn't allow, like it's completely anonymous in a sense that you have no info. But again, if you give your wallet account to transfer to someone to transfer money, it can leak and become public in a sense, isn't it?
exactly. So, certain companies say we're going to go forward, Tesla, whatever, we're going to go forward by this amount of Bitcoin, right? And so then
Mm-hmm.
people will look and they'll figure out, oh, look at these wallets. They bought a certain
Mm-hmm.
amount of Bitcoin over a time period. We can now make an assumption this is Tesla's wallet. And then, yeah, people now have your wallet address. So, yeah, there's tons of work. There's tons of companies that do it, that track down all of the wallets. But like you're talking about Monero, they wanted the original idea of completely anonymized, right? Nobody knows
Mm-hmm.
who the transactions are going to and coming from.
I would think central banks all around the world aren't exactly happy about a decentralized competitor,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
In a sense that, like, because
Yeah,
they've been holding the monopoly of money flowing in and out, uh, with at least within their country, or if you're the central bank of US, maybe all around the world.
Yeah.
uh, but now there are these cryptocurrencies that are completely not attached to that system.
Mhm.
So do you think it's a competition which uh, traditional like central banks have no hope to win, or will they adapt, or they will just fall apart? Like one of the three. Which scenario do you think is going
Oh,
to be
they're
unfolding
gonna
in the future?
adapt. Yeah, they're gonna adapt. But
Adapt.
similar to the education system, these huge governments are very slow to move, right? So
Yes. Uh-huh.
I think the
Bureaucracy and all of that. So.
Mhm. If you look at a simple game theory, what they would do is they would just
Mhm.
ban it, right? You would crush something before it even became competition. The
Yeah,
issue there is the government doesn't want to ban it because it'll move
it's
innovation to another
convenient, right?
country. Well, no, it'll
I
move
mean,
innovation to another country. So
interesting. Yeah, it's like saying if you ban it here, someone will still do it,
somebody will
regardless.
still, yeah. Hmm.
And as you said, like if FBI loves it in a sense that hey, this is actually maybe more useful than tracking who handed whom how many sacks of cash or
Yeah.
gold or
Yeah.
whatever, which is
Right? Yeah. How are
probably
you going to track? Yeah.
easier to track, definitely.
Yeah. So I think
So it's yeah.
Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I was
Sorry.
going to say, I think where they're moving is they'll eventually make their own crypto, right? Which will probably be a
Mhm.
centralized digital dollar, right? Centralized by the U.S.
Interesting.
government.
So it can be centralized in a sense.
You can have centralized blockchain, right? I use AWS
Mm-hmm.
for centralized blockchain databases, um,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Isn't it killing the whole philosophy of the idea, though, if you think about it? Because
certainly,
blockchain is not only the technology, which is like bulletproof transaction database,
mhm,
uh, it's in some sense when I see people talking about Bitcoin, it's it's closer to religion to me the way they talk
mhm,
about it than
yeah,
it's than to finance.
yeah,
It's a way of thinking. It's a philosophy in a sense.
mhm,
And what do you think about it as a philosophy? Would centralized dollar like mean something equal to Bitcoin, for example,
not
in
at all.
terms of keeping that philosophy up there?
Not at all, not at all, because
Not at all.
the digital dollar would still be controlled by
Yeah,
the U.S. government. So not at all. But what it would do is it would add a lot of validity to the technology, right?
interesting.
And so,
And you think the volatility will kind of
oh no, validity,
ca-
validity,
validate? Oh, okay.
like a very valid, valid point
Uh huh.
because people believe, I believe too, almost any industry you could add in blockchain and make it more efficient, right? You could put it on a blockchain, make it more efficient. So
So it's like a system of trust, just like U.S. dollars price is a reflection of people's trust into United States market
mhm,
and economy. Uh, your idea is that even if U.S. adopts a digital centralized blockchain dollar,
mhm,
maybe it won't be the exact reflection of the original philosophy and idea of the Bitcoin, but it will give kind of the it will acknowledge that there is trust into that system, into
yeah,
that technology, which will kind of help the Bitcoin itself to become more valid and more founded
yeah.
currency
And so
in a
that's why
sense.
people buy into Bitcoin now. Well, probably a lot of people just buy in for hype or FOMO
And
or
there's a disclaimer, like we are not advising you to do anything financially. Like
get
you
this
are
money.
responsible for whatever you invest and whatever happens to your money. We just talk about Bitcoin here.
Yeah, yeah. Not financial advisors, not financial advice.
Absolutely, all disclaimers on that you can possibly think of. They were just here. Yeah. So.
Um, but people buy in because of this, new system where we were talking about. There's no Visa, there's no AWS, right? Validating transactions, and this new money is validated by miners all over the world. People
All
buy
over the
in
world.
because they have faith. That's the future of currency, Right.
So okay, now I understand what means mining. Mining is basically you build a huge computer to prove as many transactions as you can to collect the fees
Little
for
fees.
validation.
Yep. Yep. And so forth. So, like
Interesting.
I was saying, that Gary, like we were talking about, sitting
Uh-huh.
there saying, "What's your passcode? You know, what transaction are
Uh-huh.
you doing?" And we have to pay him to sit there. That's what a miner is. They build a computer to sit
Mhm.
there and see the transactions come in and say, is this true
Okay, yeah.
or not? Yeah, that's like the simple.
Interesting. I've been thinking. I gotta be honest. Like, as a lot of people out there, I'm extremely skeptical of not the blockchain as a technology, but as of Bitcoin as a currency. And what adds up a lot to that, to all of these concerns is the volatility of it,
Hmm.
which is like you know, Elon Musk can tweet something about Bitcoin and the price will jump up. Like, it's crazy. It's very scary to invest into an asset which will, go up or down depending on a tweet of a CEO of a single company, which
Hmm.
it is extreme. I mean, if 10 CEOs of certain companies post something, maybe US dollar will fluctuate as well. But
Yeah.
it's a lot more sturdy in a way that if someone just posts something or if there are some bad news about US market, it's not that easy to, throw dollar into an unstable path.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin just keeps jumping up and down and
Very fast.
it's very scary to even like to think about it as an investment. Like it comes to me as a speculation, maybe speculating on it, like
Hmm.
short day trading, like buy and sell right now, which is honestly speaking, I don't think you can ever be like in big margin if you do that all on your own. Like you need
No,
probably
no.
some bots, or like you
Mhm.
need a huge team of people
Yeah.
like who have big brains and develop models who do that automated on a speed that you will never be able to catch up with. So
What we
for
do, right?
me, yeah, I mean, yes, but like because you have the resources, right? You have the capacity.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just so many people think they can beat the market and they're like smarter than Wall Street analysts and they're going to buy Bitcoin now and sell the evening, and that way they are going to become financially independent. For me, it's just an easy way to lose money and add some stress to your life, like if you think about it. Like you either have to invest in a smart way or just keep away from investments. Maybe that's an old school, like you know, a
No, so
Benjamin Graham way of thinking.
yeah.
But that so back to the point of volatility. My question would be: so with this volatility on Bitcoin, and recently we heard Salvador, I think, announced they are going to use Bitcoin as a national currency now.
Hmm. Hmm.
So uh, so there are these conflicting news. On one side, it's very volatile. On the other, there is this interesting technology beneath it.
Hmm.
On one side, governments are hesitant about adopting it. On the other side, hey, there's Salvador that took it as
Just
a
like
national
yeah,
currency.
yeah, it's a big experiment.
Like that throws people out of even considering it. What would your take be on the volatility of the value of Bitcoin? Why
Well,
is
so
it happening?
you touched on so many great points there. But for one thing, the volatility is inherent in Bitcoin. It's gone down over time, but it's an
Uh huh.
asset that's extremely volatile. Like take options trading. If you were to jump into options, that is extremely volatile. You know, they can swing 50% in a day. It's an
But
asset.
it's not exactly the same though, right? Options is you
I'm
you
just
make
saying
a
based on
bet on
volatility.
future.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying based on
Uh-huh.
volatility, right? It's you're investing into an asset um,
Hmm.
that has been known to be very volatile. So you were talking about older time investment strategy. You want to do the same thing with Bitcoin. You see, in the long run, we're moving towards mass adoption, right? These countries are starting to
Interesting.
adopt it. Inside of El Salvador, all of the businesses that operate there have to be allowed to accept Bitcoin. So now you have McDonald's having to accept Bitcoin, or any
Oh,
other
right.
company,
Interesting.
right? So
So
if you
it's
see the
so
trend,
once one country adopts it, all the businesses have to adjust
mhm.
to it, and that means they are going to, yeah, that's really an interesting. Sorry for
Right. So,
interrupting.
so once again, we're looking at countries taking on ETFs. We have Canadian ETFs, which means almost every pension fund, or everybody in their retirement account is going to buy into an ETF, which then needs to
Mm-hmm,
go and buy more Bitcoin, and so forth. And it's people buying in and accepting this technology. So if you believe in the technology, and you believe the mass adoption of the Chinese government or the U.S. government
mm-hmm,
adopting blockchain technology, will eventually bring up the whole blockchain industry as a whole.
mm-hmm,
You need to not worry about short-term volatility, right? I don't think any of the authors or the books you were mentioning,
mm-hmm.
Intelligent Investor, none of them would tell you to day trade. None of them would tell you to try to predict.
They actually, I think there was a quote from Intelligent Investor. It says,
Yeah,
if you want to like kill yourself financially, the best way to commit a financial suicide is
yeah,
day trading. It's like
exactly.
basically I think it's on the commentary to chapter 6. It was just amazing to read because
Yeah,
I've been quoting this to my close friend who was day trading and losing money, and I was like, you gotta read the book first and then get back to investments.
yeah.
So yeah,
I don't day trade either because I'm human, right? I have
yeah,
emotions. I sleep, right?
exactly.
Crypto never sleeps. What we do in the hedge fund, what I do personally too, is I build bots. I build computer
Hmm.
programs that are based on statistics, fundamentals,
Hmm.
technicals, sentiment, to make better decisions than I do, right? Um, Computers just, they don't have emotions.
And you can buy and sell crypto like 24/7.
24/7, Christmas, New Year's, any hour of the day. Yeah, the market's
So
never
unlike the stock exchange, which opens up at certain time and
opens
closes
and
down.
close, or
So
the Japanese stock exchange takes a lunch. Yeah, there's no lunch in crypto. So they
yeah,
should
it's
even
just
append to that quote, if you really want to destroy your life, trade crypto. I think somebody actually died from
oh
exhaustion
my god,
because they kept chasing. This is
no,
like 4 years ago, because they can't stop. The markets never close. So yeah, very unfortunate. And yeah, it's I
that's
don't
extreme.
recommend. I don't recommend it for myself or anything else. Yeah, bots. And then if you believe in the technology, the simplest thing to do that'll let you sleep at night is just buy and hold, right? Because historically,
If you
every
believe long term, it's going to go
if you believe long
up
term,
and
you
up.
shouldn't even worry about the volatility, right? You shouldn't worry about
Yeah.
small shocks from tweets or so forth. That should honestly just move past you, and
Yeah.
if you really believe something's moving forward. So
Hmm.
that's kind of my philosophy on it. I think, right, day trading is fun. That's why people do
Hmm.
it. It's like
I mean, it's
gambling.
like gambling. It's pretty
It's
much
part of
gambling.
gambling.
Absolutely. It's like instead of going to Vegas and like actually paying for a trip, I mean, you'd probably better be off going to Vegas and
Yeah,
experiencing Vegas.
yeah,
But instead, people opt to like get the. I
yeah,
remember like in the school, I would see students in my master's degree. I would see students like just up and down in their phones, like buying and selling, buying and selling. I was
mhm,
like, oh wow, like
yeah,
it's just the lifestyle I couldn't opt
yeah,
for. Um, there is
but
this question though I have about digital money altogether,
yeah.
which
Wait,
is,
could I jump back
yeah,
to
go ahead.
something real quick?
Sure, sure.
Something we were talking about before relates to this. You were talking about how past price data can't ever influence future prices,
Uh
or
huh.
it's very rare that happens. So in crypto, this is a very inefficient market because we have so
Mm-hmm.
many people day trading and so forth. I think the latest estimate is under $20 billion of institutional money. These are the smart money, the Wall Street types, the teams of
Mm-hmm.
people, so forth, is in crypto right now,
Wow.
which is a $2 trillion market. So think about this. There's so many inefficiencies in crypto. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that, bots that are looking at probabilities, just simple Bayesian theory on
Uh-huh.
what's been happening, you can find, opportunities to make tons of money in the space.
Isn't the influx of bots making it less profitable? Because if there are lots of bots doing all these short trades, I would expect the returns for individual bot holder, let's say trader, to
Mm-hmm.
kind of diminish, because if everyone's doing it, it's harder to catch that profit, right?
Was
In a sense.
There's so many, right? There's what, 10,000 different currencies. There's also so many
Oh,
different
right.
strategies, that go on. And once again, like I was saying, 20 billion out of 2 trillion is institution. There's probably a small probability of bots that are in there. A lot of the first
Hmm.
bots would go for arbitrage strategies across exchanges, right? You have a bunch of
Oh, wow.
exchanges. Some places a Bitcoin is 42,000. Some places it's
Hmm.
40,000, and you could just
Oh.
buy on one exchange, sell on another. And so that's kind of the first level of bots coming in
Hmm.
and making more efficient markets, like you're talking about, equalizing equalizing out arbitrage. Then you have arbitrage across the lending rates on platforms and stable coin arbitrage, right? A stable coin is pegged 1-to-1 to a US dollar. When it goes up by a
Hmm.
cent, everyone's going to sell it because it'll mean revert. And then you have statistical arbitrages and so forth. So eventually, maybe 5, 6, 7 years, once there's a huge influx, which is great for long-term holders. There's going to have to be a huge influx of institutional capital for bots to start pricing out phenomenon. But you look
Hmm.
back at the 80s, you had Renaissance Technologies, Jim
Hmm.
Simmons. They found these inefficiencies I'm talking about in commodity futures markets. And they've been the best performing hedge fund for the last 40 years. I think their average return is 60%. So
Wow.
even, imagine beating the market by that amount 40 years in a row. I, that right there is proof we don't have totally efficient markets in
Hmm.
futures or in equities, uh, but it's very difficult to beat everybody who's in that space now. In crypto, there's
Yeah.
not that many people in that space. So if
Hmm.
you start collecting data, we started collecting data 3 years ago, massive amounts of data. There's a huge edge you can have compared to traditional markets.
That's crazy. What about um, some fun coins like Dogecoin, which is
Mhm.
basically a
Yeah.
meme? Like, what do you
Yeah.
think about these sorts of, like, is that just a joke, or like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is it?
So I will say I was very wrong about Dogecoin, right?
Dogecoin. Uh-huh.
People would ask me, and I'd tell them, "Don't buy it," so forth, at seven
Uh-huh.
cents, and
And then there was this Elon Musk tweet which basically flipped it
well, so
180
what's
degrees.
interesting is you have these projects that do absolutely nothing, right? There's a
Hmm.
lot of projects in crypto that provide real value. Like
Hmm.
there's a decentralized cloud computing coin where you can buy a node and mine this coin by offering cloud computing at 20% of what Oracle
Hmm.
and on it, right? That's a provides a great service. But what you're talking
Hmm.
about is Dogecoin. It provides literally nothing, and people
Meme
are
value, yeah,
mean
basically,
value.
yeah.
What's funny is it's really similar to what I understand. I wasn't alive back in the stock market in the right before the Great Depression. There was
Hmm.
companies that weren't doing anything and coming on the stock market,
Uh, I mean, dot com bubble
or
was
dot
pretty
com
much like
bubble
the
just as well. People jumping in and it's sort of a greater fool. Everyone's
there
buying.
was there was this there was the story of VA Linux company. I read about it in the Intelligent Investor recently. The company started trading. I think they did an IPO, which was
Mhm.
like the initial placement of their stock was about like 10-20 bucks,
Yeah,
and they've been so aggressive on marketing it as like the future tech investment, like invest here and forget about your pension, like
yeah.
Like it's which turned out to be true because it defaulted. It just turned out to be true in a bad meaning of it. But funny enough, it closed on $260, and
20.
3 years later, it was trading on $1.10, like
Oh,
the same stock.
yeah.
It's just one of the like textbook crashes of overvalued companies. So that's what you think about Dogecoin at this point, right?
Yeah, it's not going to serve anything.
Yes.
But people love nostalgia, right? They love to
Uh
laugh.
huh.
They love,
Yeah.
and so
Exactly.
maybe there's some value there. Like,
Interesting.
but what's interesting talking about the .com bubble is you had Amazon starting back then as well,
Yeah.
and it was probably grossly overvalued and speculative at $10 a share. you know,
They did. I think their stock went down like 80%
see what I'm
when the
saying?
bubble blew up. Yeah,
So
and they
just
survived it, like which
yep,
is crazy.
yep.
Yeah.
So just because crypto, all cryptos will now go down by 80% at some point, it will happen again. Doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that some of them don't have the long term potential people are speculating about now. And then some of them are like you're talking about Dogecoin or Shiba, right? That
Yeah, I
have
see.
no value and will go up 26 times and then drop and be worthless. So it's knowing, like you were talking about, having a logical mind to know
Mm-hmm.
which of these is Amazon or which of these is the stock you mentioned.
I mean, it's not possible. Like at least in stock market, I think there is just no way to point down that okay, this company is the future IBM or Amazon, and this company is going down in a year. Like at the time that you make that investment, it's almost impossible to tell. Like that's what was kind of my
Yeah,
conclusion.
it is, but it isn't, right? If a company's advertising, hey, forget your pension, right? Throw everything in here, like you were talking
I
about that
mean, there
lot.
were some ridiculous there were some ridiculous ads for companies that are
Yeah.
doing that are super respectable today. Like
Oh wow.
it's
I heard about
there were like because if you're a small company, you got to make a noise about yourself. You got to manifest yourself. You got to let
that.
people know that
Yeah.
you exist and make people throw their money into you. And small companies do all sorts of things. So like that to market themselves and become noticeable. And even some very respected companies today did go through that kind of, maybe not
Growing period.
trustworthy advertisement of themselves, but ended up surviving and creating a big business. One last question on Bitcoin
Yeah.
I would love to ask is uh, it's probably not so much about Bitcoin as it is about digital money as a whole.
Hmm.
uh, it makes us incredibly dependent on internet,
Hmm.
electricity, things that, like, let's say, God forbid, there is a war in a country where everyone uses cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Like, and the internet goes down, the electricity is working like
Yeah.
4 hours in a day.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm just thinking you would lose everything in that sense. There is no even an ATM you could be able to approach and at least try to get your dollars out, right? Like at least if electricity is up like several hours, just I mean, this is what's happening in Afghanistan. People
Yeah.
are lining up in front of the ATMs to get their money out
Mm.
because banks are not working consistently and it's difficult and all of that, which is a very it's a huge tragedy of what happens now in Afghanistan. But financially speaking, at least with a dollar, there is an old school cash. You can go and get it. We do understand that 90% of the dollar, I should mention that,
Is
is in
digital
digital
already?
value.
Yep.
Yeah, like the cash accounts for, I think, even below 10% of the money which is in the business flowing. But even if the worst of the thing happens, you have the opportunity to get that money out.
Yeah.
With the crypto, you are 100% fully dependent on the technology. If it works, you have the money. If it doesn't, it's gone.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
is
so
there like
Oh yeah, go ahead.
What would you say that for developing countries that can be a huge issue? Like, what
Yeah,
would be your take on that?
yeah. For developing countries, there will be an issue. For developed countries, if the U.S. has all its Wi-Fi and electricity go out, we're having bigger problems than where's my retirement account. There's
I
going to be
mean,
serious problems.
probably, but like money is going to be useful regardless. People are gonna need money
Yeah.
even more than ever before. Like if
So
you think and imagine if all money is just boom gone.
yeah.
Like
So
that's gonna
let's
be
say there's a situation where a whole continent loses power,
mhm.
right? Some
Okay.
meteor or something, and there's people abroad, they need their money. If a whole continent's power grid goes down, their banks
That's an
their banks
anarchy,
aren't
yeah.
going to be able to transact, right? Their banks are done. Their banks aren't going to be able to transact, not have their files, US bank, right, so forth. If
Yeah.
you have crypto, which is decentralized across the whole world, you would need the entire world's power
Network
grid
to go down.
network
Yeah.
to collapse for you to lose your money.
Interesting.
It's honestly a
So
safer
it's technically even safer in that regard.
it's much safer for a
Uh-huh.
apocalyptic, collapse of something. It, I'd say it's much safer than having anything. Yeah.
Interesting.
Once again, not financial advice. So not right. It's the word
Yeah,
safe
exactly.
with the SEC. Yeah. But
Yeah, I think
for developing countries, that is a good point. I never even thought about that. What if a
mhm.
developing country, you're trying to go to the grocery store and you can't even purchase something, so
Yeah.
forth. I know, I
And
guess,
it's also a mental thing. Like imagine like telling people of generate who are older generations that hey, now there is no cash. Okay,
yeah,
this is what you're gonna accept.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
lots of them, and that especially accounts for people who've been through tough times like
hmm
of devaluation, which happens a lot in developing countries.
yeah,
And like me speaking as being from Russia, like there were, I think it was 1991 devaluation, there was 1998 devaluation, and there was the 2008
hmm
crisis hit Russia very hard.
yeah,
And people who suffered through all of that, proving them that this new currency is now the future.
hmm
Like, what would be your opinion? Like, how to overcome that shift in people's mind that this is an acceptable medium of exchange,
yeah,
replacing the traditional cash that they can feel in their wallet, like
yeah.
in
Well,
that regard.
so advertisers pay to come around to it. Advertisers pay a ton of money to advertise to the youth, right? Because the
Hmm.
youth are going to be moving into their highest
Yeah.
earning years. They really decide what businesses are going to be around in the future. So we see now the youth love crypto. They're trying to understand it and so forth. So change, I think, is going to happen whether or not these older generations are going to accept it. I remember my dad didn't want to get a computer for his business. He was like, "No, I don't want a computer. I don't want to do that. I want to do it old school." And then somebody gave him one of those old Macintoshes with the plastic back, and now he has Macs and he loves technology, and that's all he does. And has iPhones, and so
So
I
it's pretty
think
much the progress is
it's
irreversible. Once
it's
it's if we opened
irreversible.
up the box and it's just going to be there.
Pandora's box. We're gonna move forward. But yeah, like you were saying, it's an interesting idea for very unstable countries. What's going to happen if they can't charge their phones? How are they going to go to the grocery stores? It's not something I've considered because
Easy to solve.
I think so. It's not easy to solve, but because I think of this so much in developed countries
Developed
and,
countries, yeah.
and sending remittances back to developing countries, right? So
Hmm.
remittances, if you don't know, is like people send money back home. Most banks or other services charge tens
Oh
of
yeah, I know that.
right, tens of percent to send money back home to the Philippines or so forth. Crypto allows for a transaction costing dollars, 24/7, and then they can transact in their local currency. So that's typically the extent I think of in developing nations. Um, I think moving forward, sort of a futurist thought, there
Hmm.
may be something other than a phone associated with your wallet,
Hmm.
some near
Is it
field.
technically possible to have a Bitcoin cash? I'm just thinking about it. Is this
Oh,
technologically,
a cash you could
uh,
transact. Yeah, if I,
yeah, if you think
you
about
you
it.
would know better than me. You're an electro engineer study, um, but I could imagine there could be some magnetically powered wallet
Magnetic
that could
plastic,
validate.
like
Yeah, that could validate
I,
send
I,
transactions.
th- I think Canada dollars are now plastic,
Mhm.
or Australian dollars. I don't remember exactly,
It's a plastic
but
card.
like in some sense, yeah, and like we can technically have a chip in there, like a mini computer in a sense that could be, a medium of a transaction, and there
Yeah,
could be a way of like scanning it to your wallet into someone's wallet to like mark a transaction or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
So
There's a
yeah, maybe there
solution.
is a way.
Yeah, I'm not working on it, so I don't know. But
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody somewhere is looking to do that. Yeah.
So, but it was absolutely fascinating. Thank you, Sam, so much for coming over, sharing your opinion, your wisdom about the mathematics, about the crypto, about the blockchain.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much. And we've been super glad to have you here.
Yeah, I always appreciate coming on, speaking with people like yourself. Very knowledgeable.